Changing Perspectives. C'è solo una strada verso il futuro, quella di una sostenibilità profondamente integrata. Business, persone, società, ambiente, uniti da un'unica idea di progresso, una visione che guida le nostre azioni e i nostri investimenti. Presenza sul territorio. Innovazione digitale. Efficienza e attenzione all'ambiente.
Secondo partire da ora. Secondi, Presidente dell'Acqua, entreremo con lei, devo il countdown.
Let's change
4, 3,
our perspectives.
2, 1 e in onda, prego.
Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti all'annuale assemblea dei soci di Italgas SpA. Oggi riunita in sede ordinaria e straordinaria. Oggi è il 20 aprile 2021, sono le ore 11. Mi trovo in Milano in via Carlo Bo 11 presso la sede della capogruppo. Do quindi avvio all'assemblea. Alle ore 11, a norma dell'articolo 11.2 dello Statuto Sociale, nella mia qualità di Presidente del Consiglio di amministrazione assumo la presidenza dell'odierna assemblea ordinaria e straordinaria degli azionisti di Italgas SpA. Ricordo che ai sensi dell'articolo 106 del decreto legislativo recante misure di potenziamento del servizio sanitario nazionale di sostegno economico per le famiglie, lavoratori e imprese connesse all'emergenza epidemiologica da Covid-19, la società si è avvalsa della facoltà di prevedere nell'avviso di convocazione che l'intervento in assemblea si svolga esclusivamente tramite il rappresentante designato Georson SRL, presente in assemblea mediante mezzi di telecomunicazione in persona della dottoressa Roberta Armentano, nonché della facoltà di prevedere che gli amministratori di sindaci, nonché gli altri soggetti legittimati in sensi di legge, diversi da coloro ai quali spetta il diritto di voto, i quali appunto dovevano conferire delega al rappresentante designato come avanti precisato, possono intervenire in assemblea mediante mezzi di telecomunicazione che ne garantiscano altresì l'identificazione. Sono presenti oggi alla riunione mediante mezzi di telecomunicazione per il Consiglio di amministrazione, oltre a me, i consiglieri Paolo Gallo, Silvia Stefini, Jung Pe, Gian Domenico Magliano, Paola Anna Maria Petrone, Veronica Vecchi, Andrea Mascetti.
The director, Maurizio Danelli, is absent and justified. For the Board of Statutory Auditors, Pierluigi Paltre, Marilena Cederna, Maurizio Di Marco Tullio. In addition to the Notary Public, Professor Carlo Marchetti, and the Secretary of the Board of Directors, Mr. Alessio Minutoli, the CEO, Mr. Paolo Gallo, are also present at the company's registered office in Via Carlo Bo 11 in separate rooms to avoid gatherings pursuant to the regulations in force to contain the COVID pandemic, and are connected remotely. As everyone silence their devices in mute and disable the silent mode when they wish to speak. I remind you that the meeting has been convened to debate and resolve the following agenda. Ordinary session.
Bilancio di esercizio al 31 dicembre 2020
Item
di
number
Italgas
1,
SpA.
financial statements
Relazione
of
annuale
Italgas
integrata al
SpA
31
as
dicembre
at 31st
2020.
December
Relazioni
2020,
degli amministratori e del
integrated
collegio
annual
sindacale della
report
società di
as at
revisione.
December 31st
Deliberazioni
2020,
necessarie e
reports
conseguenti.
of the directors, the
Secondo
board
punto
of
all'ordine del
statutory
giorno,
auditors and
destinazione
independent
dell'utile di
auditors,
esercizio e
related and
distribuzione del
consequent
dividendo.
resolutions. Item 2,
Terzo punto
allocation
all'ordine
of the
del giorno,
profits for the
relazione
year and
sulla
dividends
politica in materia di
distribution.
remunerazione
Item
e sui
3, report
compensi
on remuneration
corrisposti.
policy and
Si
compensation
divide
paid.
questo punto in due sottopunti.
This
Il
specific
punto
item has the
3.1,
following
approvazione della
subsections.
politica di
3.1,
remunerazione ai sensi
approval of the
dell'articolo
remuneration
123
policy
ter, comma
pursuant
3
to
bis del decreto
Article
legislativo numero
123 ter,
58 del
paragraph 3 bis
1998.
of Legislative
Punto
Decree number
3.2, deliberazioni sulla
581998.
seconda sezione della
Subsection
relazione, ai sensi
3.2,
dell'articolo
resolution of the second
123
section of
ter,
the
comma
report
6 del
pursuant to
decreto
Article
legislativo numero
123 ter,
58
paragraph
del
6 of Law
1998.
Decree
Al punto
581998.
4 dell'ordine del giorno abbiamo il piano di
Item
coinvestimento
4, co-investment plan
2021-2023 riservato ai dipendenti di Italgas
2021-2023 for
SpA e
employees
o di
of
società del
Italgas SpA
gruppo,
and or
deliberazioni
group
necessarie e
companies,
conseguenti.
related and consequent
Per quanto attiene
resolutions.
invece
As far as
all'assemblea
the
in sede
ordinary,
straordinaria,
extraordinary
i punti all'ordine del giorno
session
sono i
is
seguenti.
concerned, we
Proposta di
have the
aumento
following
di
items
capitale
on the agenda.
gratuito
Item
da
1,
riservare ai
proposal
dipendenti di
for free
Italgas
share
SpA
capital
e o di società
increase
del
for
gruppo,
employees
per un
of
importo
Italgas SpA
nominali
and
massimi di euro 5.580.000
group companies for a
in
maximum
una o più
nominal
tranche,
amount of
mediante assegnazione
5,108,000
ai sensi
euros in
dell'articolo
one or more
2349 del
tranches
Codice
through
Civile,
allocation
di un
pursuant to
corrispondente
Article
importo prelevato
2349
da
of
riserve
Italian
di
Civil
utili
Code,
annuo con
of a
emissione
corresponding
di
amount
non
taken
oltre
from
numero
retained
4
earnings
milioni e mezzo di
reserves with
azioni
issuance
ordinarie.
of more than
Modifica dell'articolo 5 dello
4,5
Statuto
ordinary
Sociale,
shares.
deliberazioni
Amendment to
necessarie e
Article 5
conseguenti.
of the Company Bylaws, related and consequent
A
resolutions.
questo punto, se nessuno si oppone,
No one raises
secondo
any
devo
objection.
verificare un punto all'ordine
Sorry,
del
I
giorno.
wanted
Perfetto,
to
abbiamo
check
discusso di tutti i
one
punti
of
all'ordine
the
del giorno.
items
Se
of
nessuno
the
si
agenda.
oppone, chiamo a
So if
fungere
no
da
one
segretario
raises any
dell'Assemblea il
objection,
notaio
I
Carlo
call upon Notary
Marchetti,
Public
come
Carlo
detto si trova
Marchetti to
nel
act
luogo
as
di
secretary of the
convocazione
meeting.
qui a Milano,
He is
via Carlo
attending
Bo
in
11.
Milan, via Carlo
È stato
Bo
costituito
11.
ai sensi dell'articolo
Pursuant to
5.2
Article
del regolamento dell'Assemblea degli
2.2 of the
azionisti di Italgas
regulations
SpA,
for
l'ufficio di
shareholders meeting of
presidenza, del
Italgas,
quale fa parte
the
l'avvocato
chairman's
Alessio
office was
Minutoli,
set up
segretario del
with the
Consiglio di
following
amministrazione,
members:
assistito
Mr.
dall'avvocato
Alessio
Valentina
Minutoli,
Piacentini,
Secretary of the
presente
Board of
anch'essa
Directors,
mediante il mezzo
assisted
di
by Mrs.
telecomunicazione.
Valentina
Confermo di
Piacentini.
aver
They are both
personalmente
attending
accettato con
I confirm that with the
dell'ufficio di
support of the
presidenza
Chairman's office, I have
l'identità e
personally
la
verified the
legittimazione degli
identity and the
intervenuti, nonché
right
la
to
facoltà
attend
di
of
tutti
those
di
present,
partecipare
as well
alla
as the right to
discussione e
take
alla
part in the
votazione.
debate and
Con il mio
exercise their voting
consenso possono
rights.
assistere
With my
all'Assemblea sempre
approval,
mediante
the
mezzi di
company
telecomunicazione
executives
dirigenti o
or
dipendenti della
employees,
società,
representatives of the
rappresentanti della
independent
società di
auditors,
revisione, nonché
as well as
professionisti,
professionals,
consulenti,
advisors,
esperti,
experts,
analisti
financial analysts,
finanziari e
and
giornalisti
qualified
qualificati
journalists
accreditati per
accredited
l'assemblea
for the
assemblea.
individual meeting may
Comunico
attend
inoltre che
remotely.
l'avviso di
I would also
convocazione
like to inform you
dell'assemblea è
that
stato
the
pubblicato
notice
in
of call
data
of the
del
shareholders
19
meeting
marzo
is
2021
available
sul
on the
sito
company's
internet della
website
società e
and
per
was
estratto sui
published in
quotidiani
our
Sole
website
24
and the
Ore e
newspaper
Financial
Sole
Times
24 Ore
in data del
Financial
19
Times
marzo
on March
2021,
19,
nonché diffuso con altre
2021,
modalità prescritte
and
dalla disciplina
circulated as
vigente.
prescribed
Non è
by the
pervenuta alla società
regulations in
alcuna richiesta
force.
di
The
integrazione
company
dell'ordine
has
del
not
giorno né
received any
alcuna
request
nuova
for
proposta di
integration of the
delibera,
agenda
ai sensi e con le
or
modalità di cui
any proposal
all'articolo
for a
126 bis
resolution
del
pursuant
TUF
to
e con le ulteriori
Article
modalità indicate
126 bis
nell'avviso di
of the
convocazione.
Consolidated Law on
Il capitale
Finance
sociale
and
è di
pursuant to the other procedures indicated in the notice of call. The share capitals amounted to 1,2,16,252.92 and is divided into 809,768,354 ordinary shares, with no indication of nominal value. The shares are indivisible and each gives the right to vote, to one vote. Please note that there are no classes of shares other than ordinary shares, and that as of today, the company does not hold any treasury shares. Pursuant to Article 13 bis of Regulation of EU Regulation 679/2016 on the protection and free circulation of personal data of natural persons, I hereby notify that personal data, name, surname, place of birth, Residence and professional qualifications of the participants in the shareholders meeting have been and will be processed by Italgas SPA as data controller in compliance with limits related to the obligations, tasks and purposes provided for by current legislation. I invite the appointed representative to communicate the number of participants. I give the floor to Dr. Roberta Armentano. Yes, Dr. Armentano, you now have the floor. You are on air. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Roberta Armentano of the Georgetown Company. As appointed representative, I would like to share with you the numbers concerning the attendees. They are attending through a proxy, of course. Here are the slides. So the number of shareholders attending, 721 through proxy. They represent 624,827,666 shares, corresponding to 77.1613% of the company's share capital. Dottor Dell'Acqua, you have the floor.
Riepilogo a questo punto che gli intervenuti in assemblea risultano essere
we have 751 attendees for a total number of shares of 624,827,666 ordinary shares, accounting for 77.16% of the company's share capital. The names of the attendees, in person or by proxy, and the shares they own, the numbers of privileged creditors will be attached to the minutes of the meeting. So the general meeting is duly convened to resolve and debate on the items on the agenda. I give the floor to the secretary to provide the usual communications. I give the floor to Carlo Marchetti, Notary Public, who is acting as secretary. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few preliminary communications. The documentation on all the items on the agenda complies with the disclosure requirements laid down by applicable regulations and is available on the company's website. According to the shareholders register and the communication received pursuant to Article 120 of the Consolidated Law on Finance and other available information, shares with significant voting powers held directly or indirectly pursuant to the current legislations and regulations are as follows. CDP, 39.51%, CDP and SNAM. Lazard Asset Management, 8.72%, Romano Minozzi, through a number of companies, 4.27% of the voting capital. BlackRock, 4.73%, Sunlight Financial, through MFS Investment Management, 3.41%. With regard to shareholders' agreements pursuant to Article 122 of the Consolidated Finance Act, please note that the company is informed about the shareholders' agreement signed on October 20, 2016 between CDP Reti and SNAM concerning all the shares that they would receive as from the date of the partial and proportional demerger of SNAM in favor of Italgas and the concurrent listing of Italgas shares. The agreement, which came into effect on November 7, 2016, governs, inter alia, the exercise of voting rights associated with syndicate shares, the setting up of an advisory committee, the duty and procedures necessary to submit a joint list for the appointment of members of the company boards of directors, and restrictions on the sale and purchase of Italgas shares. This agreement has been notified to Consob, and the appointed representative is invited to make any statement required by law, also with regard to the lack of entitlement to vote. Please note that the recording system is in operation for the sole purpose of facilitating minute-taking. The meeting can be followed via live streaming on the company's website. Since the reports concerning the items on the agenda comply with the disclosure required mentioned above and is available to all participants, if no one raises any objection, we will read the proposed resolutions. I would like to remind you that before today's meeting, no questions were received pursuant to Article 127 ter of the Consolidated Law on Finance. I would like to inform you that the appointed representative will communicate the results of the voting based on the voting instructions he received. So these are some preliminary information, and I give the floor to the chairman.
Grazie. Passo ora alla trattazione del primo punto all'ordine del giorno relativo al bilancio
the first item on the agenda.
Informo in ossequio a quanto richiesto da
financial statements. In compliance with Consob's requirements, as stated by Deloitte Touche SPA, I would like to inform you that the independent auditors have spent 1,185 hours for a fee of 68,772 euros for the audit of the financial statements and 265 hours for a fee of 16,703 euros for the audit of the consolidated financial statements. I would like to read the letter to shareholders and stakeholders. Dear shareholders and stakeholders, last year marked a change, a break as compared with the past. The most serious health emergency since the Second World War changed the course of history as we know it, pushing the world's economies to a crisis that affected everyone. Many established models were broken. Most of the paradigms became outmoded from one day to the next, and we were forced to reorganize our daily lives, our way of working, from the most basic activities to the most complex, by trial and error. Against this backdrop of instability, Italgas and its subsidiaries have continued to grow, taking action to ensure the safety of their 4,000 employees and to guarantee essential services to more than 7.7 customers in 1,887 municipalities. We have helped our supply chain with all the support and means necessary to resume activities quickly and effectively. All this was possible thanks to an extremely fast-paced organizational structure that managed to react with speed and through far-sighted decisions that enabled us to carry out our activities remotely. The main financial and non-financial performance indicators are the result of our actions. The publication of the CIR reports will be included in a comprehensive document. We have decided to open a new season by publishing Italgas' first integrated annual report. The aim is to provide an effective and transparent view of the company's ability to create value over time and to highlight the link between strategic priorities, governance decisions, risk management, financial performance, and social, environmental, and economic context in which we operate. It is an important integration process that involves the entire corporate structure with the aim to create sustainability. Our choices are based on the concept on embedded sustainability. Italgas, as the leading gas distributor company in Italy and number 3 in Europe, aims to use its infrastructures to play a key role in the energy transition pathways toward decarbonization of economy and consumption. In terms of renewables, natural gas is an affordable solution already available to significantly lower greenhouse gas emissions and particulate matters. It is ready to use and it can replace a range of polluting fuels while supplementing renewable electricity. The greater the share of renewables included in the electrical system, the more need there will be for flexibility and storage. Gas networks, thanks to the widespread, extensive coverage, play a strategic role, both as a means for substituting renewable gases, such as hydrogen, biomethane, and synthetic methane, and for storing surplus electricity generated from renewables through power-to-gas technology. With power-to-gas, energy can be stored and handled in gas networks in the form of green hydrogen. For this reason, Italgas is working on an important power-to-gas pilot project that will be implemented in Sardinia. There, we are building the most advanced digital network in Italy, and we will work with all the types of gases. There can be no transition without digitalization. This is not an idea, but it is our leading digital transformation of the assets is the technical prerequisite for using, distributing renewable gases and the mixtures thereof. The aim of this transformation is to create a new generation of infrastructure that can be managed remotely, that can collect big data on their operations and process data using artificial intelligence to increase
Del resto i tempi sono ormai maturi per veder scorrere nelle nostre reti anche gas diversi dal metano.
Gases other than methane running through our networks. In the current 2020-2030 decade, we will see a boom of production and distribution of biomethane, a source which is now available in large quantities. In the decade to follow, it will be the turn of green hydrogen, which currently costs 5 to 6 times as much than natural gas. But studies show that the situation is going to change due to the significant reduction in the generation cost of renewables and the cost of electrolyzers. We are committed to develop our sector and to continue being the benchmark around the world. To this end, the Italgas 2020-2026 strategic plan envisages investments for 7.5 million, focusing on 4 targets: development of the core business through organic growth, M&As, ATM, tenders and opportunities abroad, digital transformation and technological innovation, new development opportunities by leveraging the group's expertise in the water and energy efficiency sector, a sound and efficient financial structure. It goes without saying that the linking element is sustainability and social responsibility. This business model has enabled Italgas to be listed for the 2nd year in a row in the prestigious Dow Jones Sustainability Index, which testifies to the ability of businesses to develop through a model that maximizes the potential of individual and generates interaction with the local areas and communities. Italgas was the only Italian company in the industry
recente conferma nel FTSE4Good.
Important recognition. In addition to its recent listing in the FTSE Good Index Series, in 2020, Italgas was also listed by the CDP, Carbon Disclosure Project, among the world's leading companies for strategies and measures implemented to fight climate change. Investments around 778 million, plus 5.1% as compared to 2019, show that the company has the capacity to mobilize considerable investments for the development, maintenance and digitalization of the network, as well as for the Sardinia mechanization project. In 2020, Italgas installed 1.2 million smart meters for a total of 7.49 million, which now accounts for approximately 88% of all meters. The growing number of digital devices and sensors installed on the network will enable us to measure and monitor gas consumption more accurately, prevent faults and leaks, and manage maintenance on a predictive basis, thereby improving the efficiency and quality of service. These results were achieved thanks to the contribution of all Italgas people. They managed to combine change, innovation, and improvement. And now we can provide and distribute a dividend of 0.277% up to 8.2 as compared to 2019 to satisfy our shareholders. I give the floor to our CEO.
Good morning to all of you and welcome to this general meeting for the second year in a row. Unfortunately, it's virtual. Much has been said by Chairman Dell'Acqua on the past year. I will try on my side to give you some additional pieces of information to all of you so that you can evaluate what Italgas has done in 2020. First, let us take a look at the stock price since we've gone back to the stock exchange. As you can see, Italgas has posted plus 62% since the 7th of November 2016. I would say in line, absolutely in line with FTSE MIB. Ranking second after Terna and much better than many of our competitors. I will explain to you some elements that will help us understand the stock performance. If we move on, just to give a snapshot of Italgas today, over 73,000 kilometers of network managed in Italy, in almost 2,000 municipalities, 7.7 million active meters. These are final customers and market share of over 35% and over 4,000 employees. As you can see, if you remember, up until some years ago, the companies that we didn't consolidate were many more numerous. Today, after the consolidation, we've grown thanks to that, and the number of investee companies not yet consolidated has gone down a lot. But on that as well, we will try and improve. Very briefly, I will illustrate the company structure. I'm glad to show you a preview of what will happen at the end of the month, i.e. simplification of our structure, and most especially growth in some sectors, most especially energy efficiency. Here is a snapshot that we will have at the end of the month. The merger project between the two ESCOs in the group, Seaside and Toscana Energia Green, has been approved and will be operational from the 1st of May. So this is a very important step for us as a group because it consolidates two very complementary entities which have operated very well. Seaside, if you remember, was acquired by us exactly 3 years ago. Toscana Energia Green has a long story in Tuscany as an energy efficiency company, and they, like I said, operate in very complementary areas. We put them together because we believe that in this case, together, they can be stronger because Toscana Energia Green is more active for the public administration and Seaside in the private sector. But put together, they can certainly do a lot more than the sum of the parts. The project was also approved and supported by the other public shareholders of Toscana Energia, and we are very happy for that. Moving on, I would like to talk to you a little bit of the scenario and why. Well, something has already been hinted at by the chairman, but I want you to better understand what the role is of the gas infrastructures, let's say, in the upcoming 20 years, up to 2040 or 2050, if we want to consider the decarbonization goal set by the EU. Why am I telling you so? Because otherwise, most especially you, the shareholders of the company, Italgas, would not fully capture and grasp the role. And many times when we read newspapers or hear comments, we tend to kind of, simplify what we hear or read about some solutions and aspects of the Italian European energy system, which instead should not be so oversimplified. First, if we consider now, we can see that today 60% of European energy supply is accounted for by gas. There are two more elements to be considered, which are important, and they will come true in the upcoming decade. The progressive exit from the use of coal, which certainly is one of the worst pollutants currently used to produce electricity, and that across Europe, so in Italy, but not only in Italy, and most especially in Germany and Poland, that still have a strong coal-based production. And some countries like Germany have decided to leave the nuke, maybe with a longer time horizon. But what does it mean? It means that about 1,400 kilowatt hours of energy today produced by nuke and coal will have to be replaced. Sure, most will be replaced by renewables. But not only that, though, because we will also need to replace them with more conventional electric power plants fed by natural gas. And then we will see what it means to boost, and that's a goal, the share of production from renewables. That's a goal for all. So let's say that the role of gas will be crucial in the upcoming years. And that on two fronts, between this decade and the upcoming one. So I'll tell you a couple of things. The decade we are living in will see a progressive success of biomethane, and starting from 2030, there will be a progressive success of hydrogen, and I will tell you why. Why is it a little realistic to talk about a full electrification of the system? It's little realistic also for physical reasons, because every year it would take 9 to 11 billions of investments per year, I'm talking about euros, for the mere upgrade of electrical infrastructures. And on top of that, it would be a waste of money, a horrible one, because we have gas transportation and distribution that is so good in all Europe. And I would like to remind you that we serve over 100 million of final customers, so 300 million people. And this covers over 2 million kilometers, and it reaches out to everywhere, including very far away European places. And in Italy, it has a penetration in terms of residential customers that is amongst the highest in Europe, 92%. But I will try and give you the context. Why is it that the increase in availability of renewable energy is something that we have to consider in order to design a future of the European energy system that is reliable? Well, that's because we know that renewables produce, when there's sun and wind. So they need a capacity of modulating the remainder of the system, and this has to be very high. When there's demand and supply, I have to accurately match them. Where this is not possible, well, I will have issues. Like we've done up until now, flexibility is guaranteed by conventional plants. Coal-fed and most especially gas-fed. If you take a look at the fluctuation of demand, i.e. the difference, the mismatch between gas demand in winter and summer, it's so high. In Germany, it's 7 times higher, and in Italy, 3 times higher. So gas demand during the winter is 3 times as much as during summer. And thanks to storage and transport and distribution networks, this demand mismatch can be met and can accompany very well, as you can see on the chart, performance that is opposite to PV. PV during the winter goes down significantly in terms of production, and it peaks during the summer. But allow me to try and draw some conclusions about this energy scenario. And please allow me to add one more element, i.e. biomethane. It is a significant element. And why? Well, we are aware of the problems that we have in Italy for waste management, urban waste and agricultural waste management. There's a huge opportunity that has become a reality both in Italy and across Europe, and it relates to the production of biomethane and biogas that is subsequently cleaned and becomes biomethane by using urban waste and agricultural waste. Most especially with respect to the latter, the outlook is very good for the circular economy that is, the buzzword, and this would allow the farmers that today have a liability in terms of income statement with respect to agricultural waste. And this could become a great value because from farming waste, you can produce biomethane, and biomethane in turn can be fed into the grids. Which grids? Well, essentially distribution grids. Already today, the users of biomethane in Europe are connected to the extent of over 90% to distribution grids. And in Italy as well, the percentage is similar. Over the last 2 years, we've seen that there's been a significant increase in the requests for connection. And why? Well, that's because luckily our legislation is helping grow this type of production. If we consider the outlook, it's good. Until 2030, it is thought that 10% of the demand of natural gas in Italy will be met by biomethane. And in France, they believe that by 2050, 100% of the demand of gas will be met by biomethane. So the outlook is good. Biomethane is deemed to be a renewable gas. because instead of having farming waste that is abandoned and produces CO2, agricultural waste is reused to produce biomethane, which is fed to the grid. Prior to moving on to the conclusions of this scenario, one aspect that I briefly touched upon earlier on is shown here with this chart so that we can clearly understand what it means to have flexibility in the system. And I'm talking about storage. Like I said earlier on, the more renewables we have in our energy system, the more the demand for flexibility of the system increases, because the system becomes more rigid, because renewables are produced depending upon climate. So, the chart here shows the responses to the need for storage and flexibility. Assuredly, we talk a lot about batteries, but you can see this very well. The size of the batteries is not the answer, that's for sure, to the need for energy storage and flexibility in the production of energy itself to meet the variable demand. So it's no answer in terms of size as well as in terms of materials required for the construction of batteries. Today, we have a system inherited from our grandfathers, allowing us to meet this requirement for flexibility of the energy system. And I'm talking about the pumping stations, hydroelectric pumping stations. But how shall I say? We've used them all. But we have a response that is available technologically wise, and this is what our chairman hinted at, i.e. power to gas, i.e. the possibility to transfer the electricity that has been produced in itself by renewables into green hydrogen, maybe combined with CO2 in synthetic methane, to be fed to the gas grids, transport and distribution grids, which as such account for a storage capability that is in practice unlimited. Not only that though, but they also give us something more, because if the batteries store energy in a given place and release it in the same place, so they allow me to use energy at different points in time, the green hydrogen or synthetic methane assuredly allow me to use these energies at different points in time, but they also allow me to use my facilities and infrastructures in such a way that green hydrogen and synthetic methane can be displaced from the place of production to a different place where they will be consumed. So, the power to gas technology is the answer to the need for storage and flexibility of the electricity system. And this demand goes up as renewables replace those sources of production of electricity, most especially coal and some nuke plants. But in order to do all of this, we need, on the one hand, that the cost of green hydrogen goes down, and it will do for sure, and it's expected to go down, most especially in the upcoming decade, thanks to the reduction in the cost of electricity. Talking about the surplus from renewables, and most especially thanks to a progressive reduction in the cost of electrolyzers. We expect from 2030 to have this cost for the production of green hydrogen in line with cost of methane. This can really be the energy vector for storage and transport of electricity. But to do all of that, we need our grids to be capable of receiving these different types of gas. We've talked about methane, quite obviously, and green hydrogen. We've talked about biomethane. We've talked about synthetic methane. And in order to handle all of these different gases, we need our grid to be digital, because I need to know what I have in that grid at a given point in time during the day. And that's what Italgas is doing. It's transforming traditional grids into completely, fully digital grids. But let's see some numbers, and then I will make some comments. In particular, let's see the investments. Investments since last year, in which Italgas belonged to SNAM, have seen a significant increase as compared to 2016. We more than doubled investments, and most especially in the most difficult year that we've gone through, like everyone in 2020, we have been able, thanks to the digital transformation that is permeating the company, we have been able to beat the 2019 record. And most especially, we've been able to do so in a year which, as you all know, was particularly difficult. Let us remember that we operate in very different environments, complicated ones. In 2020, we have been able to guarantee the safety of supply and the safety of our workers and colleagues in large metropolitan areas. We serve Rome, Florence, Venice, Turin. I mean, most especially Rome, but also all of the other cities are very complicated in terms of their history. And because, like, Venice is in the lagoon, and we've been able to serve them in this difficult year, and we've also been able in these very areas to increase our investments. And we have done that also in areas which, allow me to say, are less densely populated. Like our chairman reminded you of, we've started and we're almost finalizing the methanization of Sardinia, the only island, the only region in Italy that had not yet had methane. Starting from January, we've had the first customers using methane in Sardinia as well, with an improvement from the point of view of service continuity, and most especially with an improvement in terms of, the bills of our customers in Sardinia. They've gone down by up to 30% as compared to what they used to pay before for the supply of LPG. But like I said, in our investments, at the heart, the core of our investments is the digitalization of the grid. But digitalization is not, like some say, quite simply the replacement of meters with smart meters, which we've done, by the way, quite obviously, based upon the guidance of the authority. And we've done that ahead of time. We should have complicated the replacement of all of the original meters in 2020. Unfortunately, the pandemic has slowed us down, but we're going to do that during 2021. But like I said, digitalizing a grid does not simply mean installing smart meters. Smart meters are just one piece of the overall puzzle. Digitalizing a network means that any device which is in the grid is digital, i.e. it is capable of transmitting remote information, and it is capable of receiving instructions remotely. In this case, it can send information to our control center, and likewise, it is capable of receiving instructions from our control center. To do that, as you can see, we have an ambitious plan that will be finalized in 2022. It has already been started with the design of a fully digital grid, i.e. the replacement of all of the GRFs. If you don't know this term, I'm talking about the pressure reduction facilities, which are required as I get closer to the final customer. So, like I said, all of these facilities are being replaced with digital ones, which continue to execute their mechanical pressure reduction, but they do so remotely controlled and with the possibility to send remote instructions. And then we will also install this year and next year as well some grid bottom measures. They measure the pressure at the bottom of the grid. Why is it so important? Allow me to take a couple of minutes to explain why it is so important. All of you have a gas supply agreement based upon which you pay per cubic meters of gas, but you buy energy, in point of fact, because the gas cubic meters times a very limited pressure range established by the authority determines the energy you buy. We want that pressure to be steadily monitored in such a way that the energy that you buy with the cubic meter is exactly the proper one. So we're going to install, between this year and next year, over 6,000 measurers of this pressure, which will thus help us read the pressure at which you receive gas, and if need be, in the event that this pressure is too high or too low, we can immediately correct it in real time so that the real customer has the proper pressure. And then odorization, you know that natural gas has no odor, or we input a chemical compound in the gas mix so that it has the typical odor, the gas odor, gas smell. It is that of a chemical compound. Here again, we want to be sure that the amount is the right one. And all of these stations, all of these facilities that put in this chemical compound will be fully digital. And gas chromatography. I mean, these devices analyze the gas content, and they are fundamental for the future to manage a variety of gases. In the meantime, waiting for biogas and hydrogen, for sure, this digital transformation of the grid allows us to establish a service level and a quality level of the activity that we carry out that is absolutely outstanding. If you consider the parameters which are measured by the authority, and they are public, if you see these parameters, they are well above the minimum targets established by the regulator. And one thing that I'm particularly glad of is to show to you, most especially the inspection activity that we carry out today through new digital devices across the grid. We've almost reached 100% in 2020 on a grid inspection, and the requirement is one inspection every 3 to 4 years. This is an extraordinary achievement, and no one of our competitors did the same, neither in Italy nor in Europe. So this means that we, each and every year, cover the 73,000 kilometers of the grid and verify if there are leaks, and if so, we fix them in few days, and we do that once a year. Our goal is to even increase this frequency. And this is the reason why we have increased both the number of internal people who carry out this service and the number of means available. Which are the benefits? Let us not forget the economic benefits of digitalization. Some have already been mentioned by our chairman, so ability to predict maintenance or intervene after problems come up, and we have foreseen benefits of over 200 million euros on the entire plan in terms of efficiency of investments, so not lower in absolute values, but more efficient investments, like an investment by kilometer. This would mean cost per kilometer or per installed meter. So being able to be more efficient in investments to do more. And then, quite obviously, fewer costs, lower costs, and more efficiency, more effectiveness in our interventions. So digitalization not only is useful and will be useful in order to manage the infrastructure of the future, but today it is useful to generate a better service as compared to the past at lower costs. And all of this, we want to make it available. We want to create new activities and make it available to activities we want to grow, most especially for energy efficiency. I already talked about the merger between Seaside and Toscana Energia Green, but also for the distribution of water, because we believe that in a sector where the losses amount to 40%, and then I'll tell you how many we've had, and we measured them in 2020, and they amount to 40% of the volume put in. And I think that a digital management, a real-time management of the water infrastructure is fundamental. And we are doing that in the province of Caserta, where we have a license, and we would like to do that for other licenses as well. Let us not forget, I mean, when I talk about digital transformation, I always say that the digital transformation is made by three great axes: the transformation of grids, i.e. our assets, and then the transformation of our processes, because it's useless to have digital assets that transmit billions of data when my corporate processes are not capable of managing them. And this is what we are doing in our digital factory. We are addressing and simplifying our core processes, our main corporate processes, and make them digital. But the third X is the third element. Once I have my digital assets and once I have my digital processes, I need to have people. People must be able to manage digital assets and processes. People are the heart of our attention, of our focus, and we've shown that in 2020. For the second year in a row, we've been reconfirmed as top employer, and most especially, we have continued also in a very difficult year to deliver lots of training. Thanks to our digital transformation, we've been able to do so remotely. Over 75,000 hours of training delivered to our colleagues, of which 1/3 for digitalization alone, because for us, this is the heart of the industrial plan, of the business plan, and so, as such, must also be the focus, the main focus for our customers and the entire personnel that works in Italgas. Today, we can say that 100% of the employees, so the 4,000 employees, today, all of them have an iPhone, an iMac, or an iPad. Some, all of them, some two or one, but very few have only one. They have all of the devices in a single ecosystem that is compatible, innovative, and technologically advanced. And it is thanks to this infrastructure that we've set up over the last 3 years that we've been able to react, like the chairman said, with just one click, when in the early days of March 2020, we've been locked down in Italy. The day after, all of our people were connected, they were remote, and we continued, thanks to that, to be able to operate, ensuring the safety and continuity of our service, and most especially guaranteeing at the same time the safety of our people. In sustainability, the chairman talked a lot about that. I would like to give you 3 bullet points. They're so important. In 2020, for the first time, and we are the only ones, I grant you, we are the only ones in Europe and in the world to have measured rather than calculated in a standard manner our emissions. Our emissions, i.e. the gas leaks in our grid, amount to 0.1%. For water, the rate is 40. So 0.1%. And we believe that we can do better. How did we measure that? We've measured that with the technology that used to be a startup some years ago, and on which we have built a partnership. We are the first customer worldwide of this American company. But it's, you know, a partnership proper. And thanks to them, we've done a couple of things. We've been able to monitor, measure, and control 100% of the grid. And at the same time, we've been able to measure the quantity, the precise quantity of gas that we've lost. 0.1%, 8 million cubic meters out of 8 billion cubic meters delivered. As for training, I've already talked about that. It's a big focus, most especially for digitalization. I believe that the other important element that you may have appreciated already is that in the remuneration plans, I mean mine and also of my team, we've added sustainability KPIs with a weighting that has grown over the years, and they become increasingly important. One of these KPIs, for example, is the quantity of gas that is leaked by grids, because since the focus today is on hazardous emissions, the fact of measuring the amount of loss and improving it year by over year is fundamental. 0.1%, so really very little. Thanks to all of this, like the chairman said, we've been reconfirmed by the main sustainability indices, most especially Dow Jones Sustainability Indexes and all of the others. Drawing my conclusions, I'd like to show you some figures. Just to show you the incredible result that we've had in 2020. I'm saying it's incredible because not only have we had, like all of the companies, had to tackle an unknown, unprecedented situation in 2020 with the pandemic and all of the issues we've had, but on top of that, for us, 2020, as foreseen, has also been a year of change in rates regulations, and we've been significantly impacted by that. We have had at the same perimeter, year over year, a reduction of revenues by 46 million euros, and this was caused by the authority. And this reduction of revenues would have impacted directly the net profit if we had not taken a number of actions already in the past years in order to counter this. As a matter of fact, the adjusted net profit year over year is steady. Slightly up, actually. What does it mean? That we've been able to absorb 46 million of fewer revenues, and how? Well, essentially in two ways. One, because we've invested heavily in the previous years, so our risk-adjusted value went up. And the other way, most especially, thanks to cost efficiency, which doesn't come from cost cutting. Quite to the contrary, our costs, maintenance costs, and grid improvement costs have gone up. But it comes from an efficiency effort that today derives mainly from digital transformation. Thanks to digital transformation, your company has been able to hit this target, which I believe is extraordinary. Few of us believed at the beginning of the year and hoped that this would be possible. And then we've had the pandemic as well, which quite obviously as has been for all of the companies, has created many problems. But despite that, the company reacted during the year, and most especially the choices that have been made, visionary choices in the past years, have helped us not only overcome this critical period, but also reduce or cancel, bring down to zero the impact of a set of rules which, since the 1st of January 2020, were very penalizing. Allow me to point out that our revenues and our margin and our profits have gone up over the years, starting from 2016, plus 56% of the net profit. I believe that it is remarkable. From 2016 to 2020 included, so with the payment of the dividend for the year 2020, we distributed 951 million dividends. But I would like to show you this number alongside another number, i.e. how much we've invested in these years. In these years, we have invested almost 3 billion euros. And we have carried out acquisitions to the extent of 355 million euros, 3.3 billion invested for the growth of the company. Like this, we show that we are capable of remunerating our shareholders, and most especially to grow the company that is your company. And most especially, we have provided evidence of the last years of being able to find the financial resources, and most especially, we've shown that all of the people of Italgas are able to grow this company. 3.3 billion invested in the grid and for the digitalization and acquisitions, and I believe that this is a very important number. And as a matter of fact, our RAV has grown by 30% since 2016, and as you can see, also the net indebtedness didn't grow more than RAV, and the leverage, what our analysts measure continuously, i.e. the RAV indebtedness coefficient, remained steady. This means that there's also been an important distribution of dividends over the last 4 years, and we've been able to boost the internal efficiency of the company in order to be able to invest and have debts only to allow the company to grow. And as a matter of fact, our indebtedness has also become, as you can see, one with a very low cost, thanks to market conditions. But we've been able to seize this opportunity at the right time. Today, we have a share of fixed debt of almost 90%, and our total cost of indebtedness is lower than 1%. This in 2020. We've also, like you may have seen in February, we've also issued new bonds to the extent of 1 billion euros in 2 tranches, 7 and 12 years, with a buyback of bonds that expired next year and in 2024. So that's been a successful deal that has allowed us, on the one hand, to further reduce the cost of debt and to lengthen its term, which is very well distributed in the coming years. And most especially, we have significantly reduced the term of 2022. All of this, and apologies if I've been long drawn out in my presentation, but I believe that this has been important to close a particularly difficult year. I wanted to illustrate to you not just the results, but also give you, the corporate view on the future of infrastructure of gas. So, like I said, with these numbers, as the chairman said, we propose to this general meeting to distribute a dividend of 0.277 euros per share, which as compared to last year grows by 8.2%. You should bear in mind that with the presentation of the plan last October, the Board of Directors changed the dividend policy of the company, increasing the payout on the result from 60 to 65%. So the growth is also due to a dividend policy that has changed during the last month of October. And we believe that this dividend policy is financially sustainable and allows the company, as we have demonstrated in the previous 4 years, to be able to continue to invest and grow by seizing the opportunities in the Italian market, but as you know, also abroad. We are considering the tender for the privatization of the distribution of gas in Greece, and we are very interested in it. Or maybe we could also seize different opportunities in nearby markets where we believe that our competencies can be positively shown, and I'm talking about energy efficiency and water distribution. So this is the proposal that the Board of Directors is submitting to you at this meeting. The floor goes back to the Chairman, and thank you for your attention.
Mr. Chairman.
Bene, molte grazie. Ringrazio l'amministratore delegato per la sua presentazione e anche per i risultati raggiunti in un anno sicuramente non semplice. Lo ringrazio anche a nome di tutto il Consiglio di amministrazione. Invito ora il dottor Pierluigi Pace, presidente del collegio sindacale, a dare lettura delle conclusioni della relazione del collegio sindacale all'Assemblea degli azionisti ai sensi dell'articolo 153
report of the Board of Statutory Auditors pursuant to Article 153 of Law Decree 58 and Article 2421 of the Italian Civil Code. I give the floor to Dr. Pierluigi Pace. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Based on the supervisory activity carried out, the Board of Statutory Auditors approves the financial statements as at December 31st, 2020, and the proposed allocation of the net profit for the year as formulated by the Board of Directors. Thank you. Perfect.
Bene, invito ora la dottoressa Paola Maria Teresa Rolli, socia di Deloitte & Touche SpA, a dare lettura delle conclusioni della relazione della società di revisione sul bilancio di esercizio. Passo quindi la parola alla dottoressa Rolli. Grazie.
Deloitte & Touche. Dottoressa Rolli. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. As independent auditor charged with the examination of the auditing reports of Italgas, we have carried out the procedures set forth in the auditing standard. And we think that the statements of Italgas illustrates in a correct way the financial situation of the company, and is in line with the financial reporting standards adopted by the EU and in compliance with the regulations pursuant to Article 9 of the Consob regulation. Thank you, and I give the floor to the chairman.
Grazie. Chiedo ora al notaio, al professor Marchetti, di procedere alla lettura della proposta di delibera contenuta nella relazione del Consiglio di
contained
amministrazione.
in the Board of Directors report. Dr. Marchetti. So, now we have come to the resolution concerning the financial statements. Dear shareholders, having heard the report of the directors, the board of the statutory auditors and the independent auditors, and the integrated annual report as of December 31st, 2020, you are invited to approve the financial statements as of December 31st, 2020 of Italgas, which closed with a profit of 214,825,590.99 euros. I invite the appointed representative to communicate the number of votes received based on the voting instructions. Dr. Amitano? Yes. Georgeson, SRL, as appointed representative, is going to communicate the outcome of the voting. Can you share the slides with us? So, in favor? Just a second. So, in favor, 77.10% of the sharing capital. That is 99.93% of the shareholders with voting right. Against, 0.3%, abstained 0.05%. Obviously, the proposal has been approved by the majority of voters. All the details concerning the voting will be included in the attendance sheet that will be attached to the minutes. I give the floor to the chairman.
Grazie.
Thank you.
Passiamo ora alla trattazione del secondo punto all'ordine del giorno,
to the discussion
relativo
of
all'utile di
point
esercizio
number
e distribuzione
2
del dividendo.
of
Chiedo
the
quindi di nuovo al
agenda
notaio di
concerning
procedere
the
alla lettura
allocation
della
of the
proposta di
profits for the
delibera
year and
contenuta nella
distribution
relazione del
of
Consiglio
the
di
dividend.
amministrazione.
I invite the notary public to read out the proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second item on the agenda is the following. The Board of Directors invites you to allocate to the shareholder 0.277 euros as a dividend per share in proportion to the shares in circulation on the ex-dividend date, using the profit for the year amounting to 214,825,590.99 euros, resulting from the Italgas S.p.A. financial statements as at December 31st, 2020, and for the remainder retained earnings. And I invite you to approve whether you resolve to pay the dividend of 0.277 euros due on each share from 27 on May 2021, which coupon ex-date set for May 21st, 2021, and record date May 25th, 2021. I invite Dr. Armitano to read the number of voters and of votes cast during this ordinary meeting. Okay. We are ready? So, in favor? In favor, 98.97% of the voting shares, against 1.02%, 4,911 abstained, 0.8%, and so the recommendation concerning the second item on the agenda is approved by the majority of voters. And I give the floor to the chairman.
Passo ora alla trattazione del terzo punto
I will move
all'ordine del
on
giorno
to the discussion
relativo
of
alla
the third
relazione
item
sulla
on the
remunerazione.
agenda concerning the
Ricordo
remuneration
che gli
report.
azionisti, ai
I would
sensi
like to
dell'articolo
remind you that the
123 ter,
shareholders,
comma 3
pursuant
bis
to
di
Article
TUF,
123
saranno
ter,
chiamati ad
paragraph
approvare la
3
sezione
bis
1
of the
della
Consolidated
relazione
Loan
sulla
Finance
remunerazione,
will be
con
invited to approve
deliberazione
Section 1 of
vincolante
the
ai sensi
remuneration
dell'articolo
report with a
123
binding
ter, comma
resolution
3 ter
pursuant
del
to
TUF.
Article 123
Gli
ter, paragraph
azionisti saranno
3 of the
inoltre chiamati, ai
Consolidated Loan
sensi dell'articolo
Finance.
123 ter,
In
comma
addition,
6
the
del
shareholders
TUF,
will be
a
called
deliberare in
upon
senso
to
favorevole o
resolve
contrario sulla
for
sezione
or
2
against
della
Section
relazione
2
sulla
of the remuneration
remunerazione,
report
con deliberazione
with a
non
non-binding
vincolante.
resolution.
Passo ora la parola al
I give the floor to
Presidente
the
del
chairman
Comitato
of
Nomine
the
e
Nomination and
Remunerazione,
Remuneration
l'Avvocato Andrea
Committee,
Mascetti,
Mr. Andrea
affinché dia
Mascetti, so
lettura
that
agli
he
stakeholder
will read out the
predisposta
letter to
della
stakeholders
lettera predisposta dal Comitato Nomine e
prepared by
Remunerazione
the Nomination and Remuneration
Grazie, passo quindi la
Committee.
parola
I give the
all'Avvocato
floor
Mascetti.
to Avvocato Mascetti. Good morning, everyone, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to read the report. Dear shareholders, I am pleased to present the report on the Remuneration Policy 2021 and the compensation paid for 2020. The Nomination and Remuneration Committee, set up following the shareholders' meeting of April 4, 2019, and consisting of myself and Director Silvia Stefini and Maurizio Dainelli, has focused its attention on the significant importance of the group's remuneration policy to achieve the goals of business growth and sustainability in the medium and long term, and to create value for all shareholders. The activities and decisions of the Nomination and Remuneration Committee have aimed to guarantee full alignment with the Strategic Plan 2020-2026 and implement in the best possible way the recommendations of last year's shareholders' meeting. In addition to the changes introduced by the new Corporate Governance Code, Italgas is now a vertically integrated company and must comply with the rules on functional unbundling, since it distributes and sells natural gas to end customers. As you know, 2020 was marked by the COVID-19 pandemic, which Italgas faced by taking a number of initiatives to support employees and enable the company technicians to operate safely throughout the country. The committee has carefully assessed the potential impact on the 2020 remuneration policy and recognizes that the management did very well in coping with the new and unforeseen scenario, and has deemed it appropriate to guarantee an alignment with the policy approved at the shareholders' meeting. I would like to highlight two important elements. The new co-investment plan 2021-2023 and to also use a part of the incentives as shares. And this plan aims at guaranteeing alignment with the creation of value for the shareholders and with the medium and long-term sustainability of the company's result. As far as the CEO succession plan is concerned, a contingency plan was prepared and approved and includes clear guidelines for the process to be followed and the main lines of responsibility. The 2021 remuneration policy rests on the following pillars: consistency, through a thorough internal and external benchmarking activity aimed at guaranteeing an alignment with the main market and governance practices. With the support of specialized advisors, the committee carried out in-depth analysis on the remuneration for the CEO, the board of directors and its committees, the board of statutory auditors and the top management. The focus was on Italian companies of the FTSE/MIB index that can be compared to Italgas in terms of business and economic value. Listening through an ongoing dialogue with all internal and external shareholders to guarantee full alignment of the remuneration policy with the key drivers of the strategic plan and the creation of value for shareholders. With the support of the HRO function, the committee carried out an in-depth analysis on the main findings of the latest general meeting of shareholders to identify the main areas to be improved. Sustainability and inclusion, ensuring the connection between remuneration and medium and long-term objectives, and with the share price, by focusing on the inclusion of Italgas' main ESG objectives into the incentive plans for the top management, which is even more important for the priorities identified in the materiality matrix. We think that this approach can meet the expectations of Italgas stakeholders while ensuring the alignment of our remuneration policy with national and international best practices. With the hope that this report provides an effective view of Italgas remuneration policy, I would like to thank you for your willingness to discuss during this shareholders meeting in a perspective of continuous dialogue aimed at achieving common objectives.
Thank you. I
would like to thank the chairman of the Nomination and Remuneration Committee, Mr. Mascetti, and ask the notary to read out the first resolution proposal contained in the Board of Directors report. I give the floor to Professor Marchetti. So I start again. First resolution. The ordinary shareholders meeting of Italgas, after having examined the report of the Board of Directors drawn up in accordance with Article 123, so first resolution resolved to approve the remuneration policy set out in the first section of the policy on remuneration and compensation paid, drawn up in accordance with Article 123 of Law Decree 58-199 as amended. So we ask the appointed representative to communicate the number of votes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to show you the numbers of voters. So in favor, 96.44% of the attendees, against 2.84%, abstained not 0.71%. Therefore, the resolution has been approved unanimously. Mr. Chairman, if you agree, I would like to read the second resolution. Second resolution. The ordinary shareholders meeting of Italgas S.p.A., after having examined the report of the Board of Directors drawn up in accordance with Article 123, and for the purposes established by subsection 6 of the aforementioned standard, and therefore with a non-binding resolution, resolved to approve the second section of the policy on remuneration and compensation paid, drawn up in accordance with Article 123 as amended, and further applicable legislation. I would like to invite the appointed representative to illustrate the results of the voting. So the voting concerning the second subsection of item 3 of the ordinary session of the general meeting are the following. Thank you. In favor, 97.29% of the voting share capital, against 1.46%, abstained 1.23%, and so the recommendation has been approved by the majority of votes. So I invite the chairman to read out
Passiamo ora alla trattazione del quarto punto all'ordine del giorno relativo al piano di co-investimento. Passo nuovamente la parola al
Item
notaio, al
4 of the ordinary meeting concerns the co-investment plan, and I ask the notary public to read out the proposed resolution. Thank you. So the proposal is the following. The shareholders' meeting of Italgas convene in an ordinary session on the assumption of the approval of the Italgas S.p.A. remuneration policy for the financial year 2021 of the ordinary shareholders' meeting of April 20th, resolves to approve in accordance with and for the purposes of Article 114, the co-investment plan for employees of Italgas S.p.A. and or group companies under the terms and conditions stated in the information documents attached to the Board of Directors' explanatory report. To grant the Board of Directors and on its behalf the CEO all the necessary and appropriate powers to ensure the full and complete implementation of the aforesaid co-investment plan 2020-2023 for employees of Italgas S.p.A. and or group companies, including through individuals appointed for this purpose. To award the annual allocation of rights to the CEO and general manager of the company, to draw up and approve the regulations for each annual allocation and make the amendments and or additions necessary, identify the beneficiaries, define any other term and condition required for the implementation of the 2021 and 23 co-investment plan for employees of Italgas S.p.A. and all group companies, to issue the disclosure to the market, to draw up any document that is necessary in relation to the 2021-2023 co-investment plan for employees of Italgas S.p.A. and group companies, pursuant to the applicable legislation. It being understood that any decision concerning or pertaining to a beneficiary of said plan, who is also CEO of Italgas, as well as any other decision concerning to and pertaining the management or the implementation of the plan, shall remain the exclusive responsibility of the board. I invite Dottoressa Parmentano to read out the outcome of the voting on the fourth item of the agenda. Professor Marchetti. So this resolution has received the following votes. In favor, 98.90% of the voting share capital. Against, 1.08%. Abstained, 0.7%. So this recommendation has been approved, and I give the floor to the chairman.
Così esaurito la trattazione della parte
So we have completed the discussion of the ordinary part of the general meeting. I shall now move on to the extraordinary part. I would like to remind you that all communications made at the opening of the meeting concerned the increase in share capital, and we will also consider the amendments to Article 5 of the bylaws. I invite the appointed representative to read the outcome of the voting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to show you the slide. So here you have the number of attendees. We have 751 attendees representing 624,827,666 shares. That is 77.16% of the share capitals. Thank you.
Grazie, quindi comunico nuovamente che gli intervenuti risultano essere pari a
751 attendees to the extraordinary meeting, 624,827 ordinary shares, representing 77.16% of the share capital. So the meeting is duly constituted and to resolve and debate concerning the item on the agenda. There is only one item on the agenda, and the current shareholder capital is 1,002,000,000
Grazie, passo la parola al professor
I give the floor to Professor Marchetti. The shareholders meeting of Italgas, having acknowledged the recommendation made by the board of directors and having examined the related report, having acknowledged the approval by today's ordinary shareholders meeting of the incentive plan called Co-Investment Plan for Employees of Italgas S.p.A. and group companies, resolves to increase the share capital by a maximum amount of 5,580,000 euros through allocation, even in one or more tranches, of a maximum number of 4,500,000 new ordinary shares to be assigned free of charge through allocation pursuant to Article 2349 of the Italian Civil Code, and a corresponding amount taken from retained earnings reserves to employees of the company and or companies of the group. Beneficiaries of the incentive plan approved by the ordinary shareholder meetings. Point number 2, amendment of Article 5 of the company bylaws by adding the paragraph concerning the resolution I just mentioned. The third subsection includes the following: to grant power to amend Article 5 of the company bylaws as regards the part concerning the capital increase and the number of shares on which it is comprised, the power to perform all activities and prepare all documents necessary for executing the capital increase, the power to take all steps necessary and appropriate to execute the resolution, also by granting the legal representatives in office the power to act severally to introduce changes to establish that if the capital increase is approved, is not fully subscribed by the final deadline of June 30, 2016, the capital shall in any case be understood as increased for the amount equal to shares issues. And we also ask you to approve the granting of the power to take all steps to execute the resolution. And then the capital shall in any case be understood as increased for an amount equal to the shares issued. I ask Dr. Armetano to communicate the results of the voting concerning the only item on the agenda of the extraordinary session of the shareholders meeting. Professor Marchetti? So, in favor, 99.02%, 0.97% against, abstained, 0.008. So the recommendation has been approved by the majority of votes. You will find all the details concerning the voting in the minutes of the shareholders meeting. So I give the floor to the chairman.
Grazie, Professor Marchetti.
Thank you, Professor Marchetti. So we are almost finished.
Permettetemi prima di chiudere di ringraziare assolutamente tutti i membri del Consiglio di amministrazione,
members of the board, of the statutory auditors,
particolarmente impegnativo e sfidante.
Because what they have done has been particularly demanding. I would like to thank them for the commitment and for their extremely professional approach. I would like to thank the whole management and the employees of the company, of the group, who have worked so that we could reach the results that were illustrated this morning. Last but not least, I would like to thank the team who helped us in making this meeting possible, also by connecting the attendees by remote. I would like also to thank the team of external relations of Italgas, coordinated by Dottoressa Chiara Gant and Silvana Tossi. Thank you to all of you. There being no further business coming for the general meeting, I thank all those present and declare the ordinary shareholders meeting of Italgas S.p.A. closed at 11:40 April 21st, 2021. Thank you and break a leg, everyone.